Okay, time for another essay. So let's have a look at this one. So this is an agree or disagree question type. Now there's a number of things wrong with this essay. I'm going to go through it line by line, and I'll type the corrections in, and you can see, and I'll make some comments on it as we go. So we do have a structure, so it's not bad. The general structure, as we've seen before, is introduction, paraphrase a question, opinion statement, outline sentence, what's your two main ideas, your body paragraph, your main idea, explain, example, reinforce the example, and conclusion, restate the topic. So that's relatively straightforward. So, introduction, we have to paraphrase. So, a majority number of people, well, it didn't say that. It doesn't say that machines, they played, well, that's past tense, so why is it talking about this now? We are becoming more and more. Played incredible roles. Well, it didn't say, well, what does that mean? Incredible. Is that good or bad? And we are taking advantage of them to work more productively. Well, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. We are becoming more and more dependent on machines to function in the modern world. Some people think it's a very negative development. Do you agree or disagree? So, well, so this basically is not very good as a paraphrase. That doesn't really say what that question is. Okay? I disagree with people who consider machine development as a negative development. So, you know, overuse of language development as negative development. So, we have an opinion. The author disagrees with people who consider this as a negative development. So, what you need then, this is not a discussion essay, even though this has been written kind of like a discussion essay. To what extent, as I've said 1,000 billion million trillion times, well, you know, perhaps not that many, but I have said it several hundred times, it's not a discussion. It's to what extent do you agree with this, yes or no? Okay, not look at both sides, look at both views. Okay, so one of the biggest drawbacks so the author, they disagree, so that should mean that this is not a negative thing. I disagree with people who consider this to be a negative thing. So if you disagree, it means that you must think it's a good thing. Okay? So you have to tell the reader, me, the examiner, what your two reasons are why you think this is good. So here, one of the biggest drawbacks, well, you said you disagree it's a negative development, so you should be telling me why you think it's not, why it's good. Okay, one of the biggest drawbacks of machine development, people tend to become lazier to brainstorm original ideas. Okay, yeah, good. Creating new products, like to make use of available items, doing homework. So we have an example. Okay, so that's not bad. Students have a tendency to surf on the internet rather than doing it for themselves. Okay, you mean reading books or etc. Another drawback of machine development, basic survival skills. Oh yeah, so we've got two things here. So that, you know, that isn't bad, but you've said you disagree that it's a negative step. So why are you telling me that two reasons why it's negative? You should be telling me why you disagree, why you think it is positive. So this paragraph is basically irrelevant. So, despite these drawbacks, we cannot deny that modern machinery, I don't know, has considerable benefits for our lives. Medical treatment, doctors, well, they do make use of modern computers and surgery. Modern machine allows you to extraordinary things, such presence of water on the moon. Well, yeah, that's not a very good example. So we've got one paragraph that says machines are bad, and one paragraph that says kind of machines are good, but it doesn't ask that. This is agree or disagree. And then on balance, well, it's not a balanced essay. It's agree or disagree. On balance, it is obvious that machines appear in all aspects of our lives. Well, yeah. However, whether modern machines have benefits or not depends on our way that we use them. So, where's your opinion? In the introduction, you say you disagree that it's a negative step. So that must therefore mean you agree that machines are positive. So why are you saying, however, whether they have benefits or not depends on the way we use them? That's not very clear. So that's not, that's a somewhat, well, also it's only 248 words, so it's too short in any case, but it's not very clear. Examiner is going to look at this and say, well, firstly, you've considered both views, which it's not asking you to. Secondly, you are telling me why it's bad, but you said you disagree and it isn't bad, so why is this included? Then you are telling me why they're good, okay, and we kind of have an example there. And then in the conclusion, you basically say, well, I don't know whether they're good or bad, it depends on how we use them. Well, you didn't say that in the introduction. So now, I did have a quick go at writing something that should illustrate how this works a little better. So, simple restatement. It has been argued that we are depending increasingly upon machines to function in today's world. Okay, some believe that this is a negative development. Okay, I agree. I think it's bad. And we'll argue that, and this is my outline, relying on computer-controlled devices is putting lives at risk, and I'll explain this here. And that by doing so, we are losing touch with our natural mental abilities. In other words, we're becoming stupid. And I shall talk about this here. So, sentence 1, brief restatement of the topic. Firstly, many machines and devices are controlled by computer chips these days. So, you have to focus, all right? So I'm moving now. My focus is clear. I'm going to talk about this. Virtually every machine, from a car to a washing machine to a hospital ventilator, has a microchip which controls its function. So we've moved on, okay? However, we have seen in recent events, and that happened in the UK a few weeks back, it's possible for computer hackers, to take control of such devices and threaten to harm people unless a ransom is paid. For example, in the UK this year, the NHS computers were hacked by criminals who demanded a large ransom for not turning off hospital ventilators and killing sick patients. So, my argument is I agree that they're bad, so that's the first reason why, because everything's controlled by computers. Hackers can take control and they can make them do things. Okay. The second reason, because again, this is not a balanced essay, I don't have to show both sides. All I'm doing is saying this is what I think. Okay. By relying too much on machines for even the simplest of functions, we are in danger of intellectual retardation. That is to say, by not using our brains for the simplest of tasks, such as calculating, reading a map, using Google instead of our memory, we are turning back the evolutionary process and becoming stupider as a species. For example, recent research by the University of London showed that 85% of drivers admitted to using their sat-nav, their satellite navigation, for driving around in their hometown to places they have been to before. In conclusion, this dependence on mechanical devices for our every task is certainly a retrograde step in human history. I believe that this over-reliance on computers is putting our lives at risk, main idea here, is in serious danger of making us mentally irrelevant. I like this, as a species. Okay, so that's my main idea there. So that's all that you do. Right? Not a discussion. Not a discussion. To what extent do you agree with this? Yes or no? Then give me 2 reasons why. Okay. So I hope that helps. Thanks.